Hands down, raw plant-based food is the best and most healthy food for human beings. I have never felt more energetic. I've never been able to stay in shape more effortlessly, and my body seems to be rejuvenating and growing younger the longer that I'm on my raw food journey. It's remarkable. Oh, and by the way, did I mention it tastes amazing? And no, you don't have to go to a raw vegan restaurant to have amazing raw plant-based food. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you the 3 foods that I routinely prepare as a raw foodist that keep me satisfied and taste amazing. So, are you ready? Let's go! What's up everyone? Blake here, welcome back. Thank you for being here, and if you're new, my name is Blake, and I help people flourish with the power of raw foods. And as a former personal trainer who has helped thousands of people on their health and fitness journey, I always try to inspire them that they need to learn how to cook and how to prepare their foods themselves. So the first food that I routinely prepare as a raw foodist are salads. A typical salad for me consists of a leafy green, herbs, your vegetable fruits, and then root vegetables if you would like. My leafy greens are going to be a soft sort of leafy green. The more fiber and cellulose that your vegetables have, the harder it is to digest, and it just takes longer in your digestive tract. The longer digestion time or bowel transit time that food takes as you eat it and then to pass through your digestive tract before you eliminate it, the longer it tends to stagnate and create toxemia in your body. And that's what we're trying to avoid on this diet. So even though I love my kale, I love my cabbage, those vegetables I will juice, but I will not necessarily put them in my salads anymore. And this has actually helped me to feel good with my salads and feel light, but also still satisfied. So it's typically just like romaine lettuce or butter lettuce. Any sort of lettuce is what I recommend, okay? Herbs, I personally love cilantro. I also like parsley, I also like dill. But on a day-to-day basis, and I have salads just about every day, I will typically use just cilantro, you know? And now cilantro, and all of these foods, guys, if you don't get organic, and even if you do get organic, because people don't understand that organic doesn't mean that they're not sprayed with any sort of, you know, bug killer or weed killer. It's just that whatever they're spraying is considered organic, you know? Kind of silly, right? So you still need to wash your foods. And that's why me personally, you know, I do the best I can to get organic. It is important, but sometimes the quality, the freshness, and the quantity for your dollar with conventional non-organic food is much better. And that's especially true with cilantro. You gotta make sure you wash it very thoroughly, but then you just chop it up, throw it in the bowl with the lettuce, okay? Next up, you've got your vegetal fruits. At least that's what I call them. I'll learn to say that word eventually. But these are actually fruits, guys, but they don't have any sweetness, or at least not a lot of sweetness. It's your tomatoes, your cucumbers, okay? And I love putting tomatoes and cucumbers in basically every one of my salads, all right? What you do is you just wash them and you chop them up into little diced pieces of what I like to do, you know, using a sharp knife, and then just toss them into the bowl of your salad, all right? Next up, root vegetables, okay? I'm gonna tell you like a little fun fact about root vegetables that is something to consider, and it's not something that I currently enact in my own raw food practice, but I want to throw that out there because it's something that is still in my brain as a possibility, which is that, you know, with these raw foods, you know, sometimes the harvesting of the food results in the death of the plant. And some people think that there's a certain energetic quality to eating a food that does not result in the death of the mother plant, such as a mango from the tree. You eat a mango, the tree doesn't die. You see what I'm saying? But with like a carrot, you pluck the carrot out of the ground, and then now that carrot plant is no more. The way that I'm looking at it right now is that in nature, like at least for sweet potatoes would be a good example. You plant one and then it prospers into a whole colony of sweet potatoes. So killing an individual sweet potato plant doesn't mean that you're killing that colony of plants. You could also look at a mushroom. You pluck a mushroom, but the mycelium is still there. So it's not killing the whole plant. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. But I do love carrots in my salad. I'll chop them up, or I'll get the already matchstick carrots and I'll put them in the salad. And you know, things like celery. Celery is great as well. I love celery. And so now we're starting to build this beautiful salad. For dressing, here's a very simple dressing to do, guys. You just take an avocado, all right? Typically I do about a half an avocado. Put it in a bowl, you smash it up, you squeeze some lemon juice on it, mix it around until it has somewhat of a slurry type texture, a little bit thicker than slurry, but a little bit thinner than guacamole. And that's your salad dressing, guys. Top with a little bit of sea salt if you would want. And it's so delicious. You can add more spice to it with some cayenne pepper or throw some jalapenos in there. You could add a little bit more sweetness in there with some chunks of orange, or I like coconut aminos that have sort of a sweet sour flavor. Start to learn how to construct salads that really satisfy you. Some people put nuts in their salad. Sometimes I do an Italian version. Sometimes I do an Asian version with Thai basil, which is just so good. This is a whole art form that you are going to cultivate in your life and take with you forever. It's a tool in your toolbox that only gets stronger over time, and you will learn to love and just look forward to those delicious salads you're going to make. The second staple raw food in my raw food arsenal are smoothies. Now, I used to call them Blake shakes. Maybe I kind of still do call them Blake shakes. But the whole origin of my smoothies were because I would make these amazing protein shakes throughout, basically since I lost 100 pounds in high school and throughout the last almost 2.5 decades. You know, I've kept the weight off this entire time, and I love going to the gym, and I love having an amazing protein shake after the gym. Okay, but I was using whey protein at the time, or maybe I was putting some grains in there. You know, like I used to do all sorts of cool things, like throw tortillas in there, put cooked quinoa in my cold smoothies, you know, ice, blueberries, bananas. Oats is something that I used to do a lot, but I don't eat really any of that stuff anymore. But now I've crafted this amazing sort of base recipe that you can customize however you want, that is, you know, entirely raw, or, you know, for the most part raw. And I think personally it tastes even better than the old ones that I used to make with all the non-raw ingredients and the animal protein. And all it is basically is you guys get an organic pea protein. Okay, it's vegan and it's not technically raw, to be honest with you. Even the ones that say that they're raw, because it's kind of heavily processed. Okay, but I've found, at least with myself, that it's non-mucus forming in my body. Okay, so it sits really well with me, and I just get the NutriCost one on Amazon. All right, then I throw in some water, frozen blueberries, a couple bananas, and then here is kind of like the cool trick, because the reason I call it Blake shakes is because I made them so thick. That's why I would put a tortilla in there or oats. It would thicken it up. So how am I going to thicken these shakes, you know, without any of those ingredients? Well, I found that flax works really well, and I found that chia works really well. And it's like you're feeding two birds with one seed with that one, because your flax and your chia are going to deliver a lot of omega-3s to your body, which I find to be helpful because we would otherwise get those omega-3s from fish, eggs, meat, dairy, things like that. All right. So if you soak the whole chia and the whole flax, sometimes I do it right in the blender so that it gets that mucousy puffed up. Then put in your other ingredients and blend it on high so it actually crushes the seed. It's going to thicken your smoothie amazingly. It's going to taste amazing. It gives it a bit of a nutty flavor. And I want one right now just describing it. And then that's kind of the base. I always put bananas in. I always put, you know, I typically use frozen blueberries, but sometimes I use blackberries and raspberries, or just throw them all in there, strawberries. If I have some fresh berries that I randomly get, even though I don't typically buy fresh berries too much, they're very expensive and they're sprayed heavily. And then for sweetness, guys, I use my little stevia packets. You know, this is not perfect. I'm not a perfect, like, raw vegan person. That's why I say I'm a raw foodist, you know. You know, you say high raw, but I'm a little bit, you know, even that. So you could say high raw, or you could say raw foodist, all right? Throw a little stevia in there, and then agave. But actually, I learned some things about the agave syrup recently that seem to make sense for me, because the consistency of agave syrup it's very similar to like a corn syrup, and apparently your body kind of detects it more like an alcohol. So it might be harder on your liver than for example, a maple syrup. So that's what I'm doing right now, is raw, natural, 100% maple syrup as my sweetener. Blend it together, guys, with some ice, and oh my God, that is a delicious, basically a meal. You know, this smoothie is a meal. It's something that I have after the gym. I don't have it every day. It is a lot of protein, and we technically don't need a lot of protein. You know, you do 1 scoop of the pea protein and it'll make you so satiated, especially after a hard workout. The third food that is in my raw food repertoire as a raw foodist, that is a staple of my diet, and it's actually something I'm very intimately involved in right now because I'm on day 19 of a juice fast. Well, it's juice, of course. I have the Nama juicer. During my first juice fast, which was 23 days, I basically just threw myself into juicing. And I had already researched it and saw some of the combinations that people use, the different fruit combinations, the different vegetable combinations, putting in ginger, putting in lemon to help preserve and to help give more of a health boost and an alkalinity boost and a cleansing boost. But then you don't really know what the end result is going to taste like until you make the juice. So you buy the fresh produce that you want to try to make a juice, you wash it thoroughly, and then you just throw it in the hopper of your juicer, turn the machine on, and it starts going. You know, I have a couple shorts on this channel that you could watch that shows you how to do juicing, but I want to do some more in-depth long form content to show you that as well as the other foods that I mentioned, the smoothies and salads. But this juicing is just an enigma. You know, the taste of watermelon as you eat it is a totally different taste than the juice. The taste of the juice of the flesh of a watermelon is so different than if you include the rind. And I actually like it with the rind better. Some juice combinations that I've tried, like I thought honeydew grape would be really good. It was just kind of so-so, and grapes are pretty expensive and they're not the best for juicing. I've heard that if you freeze grapes first, then they're good for juicing, but you know, that kind of defeats the purpose of raw. But you know, I already have frozen fruits anyway, so not a big deal. But the point I'm trying to get across to you guys is just try. Just do what I did, throw yourself into it, try different combinations. And what I found, and probably what you're going to find as well, is that the simpler the juice, the better. Currently, my most complex juices are my green juices. I put a lot of stuff in my green juice. I already mentioned kale, cabbage, but I like to juice carrots with that. Celery, parsley, cilantro, of course, ginger and lemon, which I put in almost everything. Lettuce, I'll throw in there. I threw some radishes in there just to give it a try and for some variety. And there might be some juices, guys, that you don't like. And then you learn. See, what I always try to teach people, and this goes back to a long time, but especially when I was a personal trainer, is to be self-sufficient, be a practitioner of the art of maintaining your health and fitness and living a healthy lifestyle. Build it as a habit into your living, into your day-to-day. Oh, even when I'm not juice fasting, I'll still make one of my favorite juice recipes decently often, which is called ABC. It stands for apple, beet, carrot. And then of course put lemon and ginger in that. What you're going to learn is to taste the juice and realize which ingredients you like and which ingredients you want to keep in there and which ones you want to omit. And you're also going to understand the proportions. Well, I wish I would have put less carrots in there and more apples, okay? Or I wish I would have put more beets in there. I don't really taste the beet flavor, even though it's like the color of beets. You know, what I learned is in my vegetable juices, my green juices, I don't like to put beets in there. It changes the whole entire color. And, you know, it kind of throws the flavor off for me. In my apple, beet, carrot juice, my ABC juice, which is actually world famous. It's more famous probably on the other side of the world, like in Asia, than it is here in the US. Very famous over there. But I don't like a ton of carrots in that. And in fact, one time I just tried an apple beet juice with ginger and lemon, and that was amazing. Sometimes I put too much ginger in and it's too spicy, but I still kind of like it. Or sometimes like I wish I had a little bit more of a kick, more ginger. Or in my green juices, I'll add jalapenos. That tends to round it out. You know, one thing that I'm recently learning about my green juices is, you know, the leafy greens and the herbs, they don't yield a lot of water, obviously, right? There's not a lot of water content in there, but what would be a vegetable that has a lot of water, or a faux vegetable? A cucumber. So I'm doing more cucumbers, okay? When you're on a juice fast, you're not like eating a salad with salt on it or soy sauce or whatever, you know? Which I use tamari for my soy sauce, you know, randomly throwing that in there. But it doesn't have soy, I think it just has wheat and it's fermented. So technically better and it's a lot tastier. But if you're craving salt, just put more celery in there. Celery has tons of sodium. So I'm learning to put more celery and more cucumber in my green juices. And then actually the juice making process goes faster. And you become more efficient at the cleaning process and the bottling process. And you just become like a juice making machine. And it's amazing. So I would inspire you guys to start juicing, even if you're not fully into the raw food lifestyle just yet, and consider doing a juice fast. That was the most life-changing thing for me, to clean out my body. And if you guys want my help with that, of course, click the link below to get your free consult, and perhaps we can work together one-on-one and get you making some amazing juice of your own. So those are my top 3 foods that I make in my raw food repertoire: salads, smoothies, and juice. I love making these foods. I've gotten nerdy at the art of it and making it taste so good, and I've shared my salads, juice, and smoothies with other people, and they love it too. And the reaction that I usually get is they're like, oh, well, I guess you're right. This is all raw, huh? And I can see the wheels turning, that they're like, I could probably do this. Blake's getting amazing results, and I would like to further my own results. And that is the magic of this lifestyle, guys, is it's kind of like a hobby, kind of like a passion, but that's why I chose the brand of Raw Food Lifestyle, because it becomes a part of your life, and it takes care of you, and it puts years and time back into your, relatively short existence on this planet, and helps you to feel amazing throughout that journey and feel vibrant, young, and full of energy. And so I hope this helps you guys on your raw food journey, and go ahead and smack the like button, punch the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, I will talk soon. Peace.